Hey guys, we're doing another deck spotlight today where you guys send me in a deck, I critique it, take a look at it, give my opinions on it, give some advice, just talk about what it's trying to do. Sorry this is a bit late, just had to catch up because I just moved, so I'm trying to do this on Sunday even though normally these go up on Thursday, so I will do one next Thursday and try to catch up. But today we're taking a look at KoolKardKid's Prophecy deck. Prophecies I'm a bit familiar with. I haven't redone mine in a long time, but I'll probably do that soon. Generally just a recycling deck that abuses a lot of spell cards. The main idea is using High Priestess of Prophecy. He's doing some interesting things. Some stuff I probably am not going to agree with. He's doing a lot of mainstay things that are pretty normal for the deck. So I'm going to talk about everything in the deck and just my opinions on it and how it's going. So first off, he's running two High Priestess of Prophecy. This is kind of the main card of the deck, just really, really powerful. I would say to run this at 3 just because it's the main power of the deck. You want to keep bringing this out. You want to be able to blow up things, make rank 7 plays, and just do a lot of really cool stuff. This card will set up everything you need to do for the deck. So I think it's really important to try to run it at 3 if possible in this deck. You can make a lot of big plays with it. And outside of it, you won't really have a lot of power in this deck, so I think it's pretty important. And then he's running one Justice of Prophecy, so this is a very useful card for the deck. You could definitely run it at 1 or 2. 1 is fine though. It's definitely not a bad thing that he's running it at 1. Can make really nice plays for you early on in the duel to set up what you want. 3 Spellbook Magician, 3 or 2 is definitely fine. Really good to search out whatever spellbook you want. 2 Stoic of Prophecy. I find that this is not necessary in this deck. Obviously, you can search out some of your prophecy monsters, but I feel like you can add other things to help make the deck more consistent, and you don't really necessarily need this. But obviously, I can see the use of it. And he's running 2 Strength of Prophecy, so this card I feel is really not necessary in this deck. Bumping up the levels and increasing attack is really not a big deal for this deck. You're also not going to get much advantage from shuffling the spellbook cards into your deck. I feel that's really not helpful for what you're trying to do with the deck. So I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like you can run other stuff instead and just focus on the pure prophecy cards that are most important for setting up how the deck works. And then 3 Temperance of Prophecy. Again, just like Spellbook Magician, a very important support card for this deck to immediately get out High Priestess. So you should run it at 3, but again, that's another big reason for you to run High Priestess at 3 because whenever you draw this card, you can just bring it out, which is very powerful. And then World of Prophecy. Definitely can be interesting to put this at 1. Definitely don't run it at 1. It's just a situational card. If you do have the thing set up right on the field, you can nuke the field and use Temperance and do some big plays there. So 1 is definitely fine for this deck. 2 MST, that's fine. And not completely necessary, but you can run MST in this deck, that's fine. Spellbook Library of the Crescent. I feel like 3 is a bit much for this. I don't actually run this card. I might run it, sometime in the future. So I'm currently thinking about it, but I think 3 will be too much because of the fact that having no spellbook cards in the graveyard is somewhat situational, depending on what you're trying to do with the deck. And then he's running 2 Spellbook of Eternity. 2 is definitely fine for this deck because you're going to banish cards with High Priestess. 1 Spellbook of Life, 1 or 2 is fine for this deck. Again, another nice way to get a High Priestess. The level part of it is not a big deal, but just the fact that you can special summon Priestess and keep doing the plays you want. So then he's running 2 Spellbook of Power. 2 is definitely fine. You could run 3 if you want, but very useful card overall. 3 Spellbook of Secrets. Staple for this deck, just sets up what you need to do. Not only does it search out whatever you want, but having another spellbook in the graveyard is just really, really good for what you're trying to do. 2 Spellbook of the Master, again, pretty much stable. Same thing with Wisdom at 2. Pretty nice choices for that. Spellbook Organization, really not necessary for this deck. I don't really see the point of this card. It's called a spellbook, but it's not really part of the archetype. Spellbook Star Hall, this is definitely a choice. I don't think it's horrible. I just don't think it's completely necessary, but I have seen some people run it. 2 Spellbook Tower, I would say to run this at 3. It's a very important card for the deck to recycle and set up what you're trying to do, so I would definitely say to run this at 3. He's running some stable traps. 2 Hidden Spellbook. Again, I find this is not necessary at all. You don't want to keep your spellbooks in the deck. I feel like you want them more in the graveyard or in your hand to make your play, so I don't think that's necessary. Transmigration Prophecy. Again, not necessary, but you can shuffle High Priestess back into the deck, so you can do some things with that, but then you won't be able to summon it with Spellbook of Life, so I'm kind of thinking about whether that's really necessary, but, it can be useful depending on the situation. For his extra deck, he has some interesting choices. Chronomaly, Crystal Chrononaut, I don't think it's really necessary, but can be a fun one to use. He's running 2 Empress. I would say to not run this at all. Mostly because I would say to not run Strength, and if you were running Strength, this would still be hard because you would need 2 copies of Strength or have other cards on there for a long time. It's going to be tough to get out with this deck. Two Hierophant. One is good. Two is okay. You don't really need two, but it's up to you depending on what your extra deck looks like. Dracossack, Big Eye, definitely great choices. Fortune Tune. He's running two Fortune Tune and two Zenmaines. I'd say one copy of each would be nice because then he can do other choices he wants to make. But extra deck isn't a huge consideration for this deck. But those are some interesting cards to use. Shimoji Soldier and Slacker Magician in case he has two Stoics, but he wants Stoic for the searching, so I'm not sure if that's really what he wants to do. I feel like stalling with the level ones is not really what the goal of the deck, so I don't think he really needs those XYZs, and I don't really think he should run Stoic anyway. But that's just my opinion. So overall, the deck looks good, but he probably should change some stuff to make it more traditional, more of a skeleton that most prophecies run. I feel like he's going to be running some cards that are not going to help him do the main goal of the deck, which is getting out High Priestess and having all the spellbooks. I feel like that's all prophecy wants to do, just get that out as quickly as possible. And you might have some additional plays because of the cards that you chose, but they're not going to necessarily make the big stuff happen for you, which I feel like is the only goal of prophecies. You just want to keep recycling, keep adding, keep doing that over and over and over again until you have the setup you want to make the deck, pretty much invincible when it has the right situation on the field. I feel like the some things you should probably consider effect failure. It's definitely a choice. He doesn't have to run this, but he can make additional plays with this, and this can be summoned if tower gets destroyed. And he can make synchro plays and do some other things there. I'd say to run Dark Hole with the low monster count and the fact that you have Spellbook of Wisdom and things like that. So I think Dark Hole would be powerful for this deck. Pot of Duality I think could be really useful to specifically get exactly what you need for this deck. I feel like Heliosphere can be nice at one or two, to set up what you want. Spellbook of Fate, is limited. It's an extremely powerful card, so I would definitely say to run one of this. And if you do want to not run traps, that's easily a choice in this deck. You could run Royal Decree. You could also run Trap Stun and things like that. So those are just some ideas. Not anything to fundamentally change the deck at all. Just, some considerations that you might want to think about. And overall, I think the deck looks decent. You just want to play around with it and see what you want to try to do and what's more important to you when you're running this kind of deck. But thank you to KoolKardKid for the submission. If you guys have any submissions you want to send me, ask me on Twitter. You can ask me on Skype. You can send me any kind of contacts. You can send me a deck list. I'll think about doing it. I really like seeing the ideas that people are coming up with, especially with all the new cards nowadays. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.